Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, and today in this video we are going to see how to disassemble a Yamaha Rx 135 engine. This video is a part of a restoration series that I've started of Yamaha Rx 135. So if you want to follow the restoration series, I will link the playlist for the restoration series in the I button. Also in this video we will just disassemble the engine. So if you want to know how I unmounted the engine from the bike, then you can see that in the first part of this series. I will link that video I will also link that video in the I button. Also stay tuned for the assembly video, and if you haven't subscribed, consider subscribing and also press the bell icon so that you can get notified every time I upload a video. So now let's start with the video, but first. So to remove the block, we need to remove 1, 2, 3, and here is 4. 1 second. This is 4. It will be very easy if you remove this when the engine is mounted on the bike. Trust me, it will be very easy. But now that I have removed the engine from the bike, I have no other option but to remove the block this way. Now how to remove this block? Since the engine is unmounted from the bike, we never hit the fins with the hammer to get the piston block out, because these fins are very weak, and if you hit it very hard, these can break. So what you do instead, as you can see here, this is a metal sleeve, you can say, inserted through the fins, and it comes out right from below. You can hit this sleeve with the hammer to get the piston block out. This will not damage the fins, and you can easily get the block out. I don't have the specific flywheel puller for this magneto, but what I have is this unnecessarily large puller, which is totally not suitable for this kind of application, and a jugaad. So let's see if that jugaad works. So the setup looks something like this. I have just threaded 3 bolts in the magneto where there was a provision to thread the bolts for the puller, and the puller is attached to these bolts like something like this. I have added a washer here so that it will be easy for the jaws of the puller to grab onto something so that it can pull easily. So let's try this setup and see if it works. Don't forget the key. Put the key in the magnet so that you won't lose it. So these are the different coils in magneto. This is the source coil, this is the pickup coil, and this is the main coil. The main coil supplies power to all the electrical systems in the bike and also responsible for charging the battery. So basically this coil supplies power to the battery circuit. The source coil and the pickup coil is part of ignition system. I have explained the purpose of these two coils and how the magneto type ignition system works in my how to install a kill switch video. So if you are interested to know how the ignition system of this bike works, I will link that video here and also in the description box, so do check that out. To remove the piston, we need to remove this circlip, and to remove this circlip, get something pointy like this and pry this out. So here it is. Now you have to remove the cut joint pin. It will very easily come out if you push it from the other side. Mine is I think stuck, so I have to tap it from the other side. You have to gently tap it and it will come out. To remove these bolts, we need to lock the clutch assembly, and to do that, get a 1 rupee coin and insert in between these gears. Check the length of these clutch springs. It should be above 33 mm. If it is below 33 mm, then you need to replace these. You should check the length of these springs by vernier caliper, but I don't have a vernier caliper, so I'm just checking it by ruler. This is 34 mm, so this is okay. Let's check the others. 34 mm. So all the springs are okay. will remove the kick shaft. To remove the kick shaft, we need to remove this spring from here. For that we'll need a nose plier. These gears are damaged, I think. As you can see, these teeths 1, 2, 3 are damaged. So we need to replace this gear. In order to remove this nut, you need to hold this clutch boss, because if you try to unscrew this nut, then the clutch boss will rotate with it. For that, there is a special tool available. This tool holds this clutch boss while you unscrew this nut. You can still do this job if you don't have this special tool. I have shown that in my RX 100 engine rebuild video. I will link the video in the I button and also provide the link in the description box below, so you can check that video and see how I've done that without using this special tool. There is one washer. There is one washer behind, and there is another circlip here. Now to remove this crank bolt, we need to lock the crank. For that I am using this T. Insert this T in between the crank, so that now it will lock the crank from the rotation. This will allow us to unscrew this nut. There is a key here. I have elevated the engine from the tabletop so that these protruding shafts won't interfere while we work on the engine. Also one thing, put something soft like wooden planks below the engine so that this gasket surface won't get damaged. Now we will remove these screws 1 and 2 so that we can get the coils out. Now we will remove these crank bolts so that we can split the crankcase. It is very advisable at this stage that you clean all this dirt and check that if any of the bolt is hiding beneath this dirt, because once you start splitting the crankcase either from here or from here using the crankcase puller, and if any of the bolt is remaining and you start pulling the crankcase, then it is very likely that you will damage your crankcase, and once you damage your crankcase, then engine is done. You cannot save the engine, then only God can save you. So it is very important that you check and double check that every crankcase bolt has been removed before you start pulling the crankcase. There are total 13 crankcase bolts where that I will show you now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 and 13. So check all the 13 bolts and make sure that you have removed each and every one of them before you start splitting the crankcase. Now that every crankcase bolt has been removed, we are ready to split the crankcase. I cannot stress this point enough, but always remember, double check that every crankcase bolt has been removed before you start splitting the crankcase. Now for splitting the crankcase, you can either use a special tool called crankcase puller which will separate the crankcase very easily, but since I don't have that, I am going to insert something wedge shaped in between this crankshaft and this crankcase that will pry this half of the crankcase out. You can also use the screwdriver as a wedge shape, but be very careful while you are hitting it with a hammer and make sure that it is not hitting the crankcase or the crankshaft. to remove the crankshaft, elevate the crankcase furthermore. My setup looks something like this, and we will use this magneto nut. Thread this until it is flush with the surface, and now we will hit this side of the crankshaft with the hammer. To check the play in the big end bearing, hold the crankshaft like this and hit the top side of the connecting rod. If you hear the clicking sound, then there is a play. As you can see in this case, there is a clicking sound. So we need to change this connecting rod, the bearing and the crank pin.